Welcome back to This Is Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. With me in the studio, I still have Professor Bola Akintenewa, Director General, Bolitech Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, Chike Ogia, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Mark Foley Hospitality Limited, and Professor David Awurawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos, Nigeria. Well, gentlemen, we have our two guests. Professor Chidi Ondinkalu talked about the ruling by the Federal High Court in Umuahia over the contentious Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act. The President of Nigeria had written to the National Assembly to jettison that particular section of the Electoral Act, which is signed into law, the Electoral Bill, which is signed into law. And now a court ruling is saying, yes, indeed, that particular section should be jettisoned. But Professor Ondinkalu, a lawyer, along with other lawyers, think that that judgment was corrupt, crooked, and it should be discountenanced. He, in fact, even likened it to the behavior of political sex workers. What do you think? Chike, let me start with you.
Well, I have listened to both very erudite lawyers, and I think my position will be somewhere in between both of theirs. For me, the situation is very simple, and it's consistent to what we talked about when we talked about Section 84 last year. As far as I'm concerned, the President asked the National Assembly to amend Section 84, and he appended his signature on the Electoral Act. That, to my mind, means the Electoral Act is in force as we speak today. It is not in the place of the AGF. It is strange to Nigerian law that the AGF will be talking about deleting an act of the National Assembly. An act of the National Assembly can only be amended by the National Assembly, or indeed by a superior court on appeal if there is an inconsistency of whatever you're complaining about that is obviously inconsistent with the Constitution, which is the ground norm. We are not seeing that here. We're seeing a situation of a high court sitting in Umuahia. I agree totally with the erudite Professor Ondinkalu that kind of speed is unknown to Nigerian jurisprudence and Nigerian law, in terms of the filing, the argument, and the judgment given all within 10 days. When, like he said, we have cases in the Supreme Court that have been there for 20 years. I used to go to court a long time ago, and I know how it works. So, you see, I've always said it that we have a problem now. We really have a problem. And that is because some people who want to profit from making sure the landscape is uneven are using their high offices to manipulate things.
Okay, Chike.
And that is a big picture.
No, if we can explore this further.
Yes.
The Land Justice based the ruling on Section 66, subsection 1
yes.
of the 1999 Constitution.
That's right.
Which says, that is on all fours,
yes.
with Section 137, Section 107,
that's
and some other sections, which says that you should resign 30 days to the election. The Electoral Act, this Section 84 of Section 12 that we talked about,
that's right.
It's a subsidiary legislation.
Yes.
And the Land Justice is saying that within the purview of Section 1, subsection 3 of the same Constitution, any subsidiary legislation that is at variance with the Constitution is on the basis of that null, void, and therefore of no effect. What do you say to
my dear learned friend, I want to put it to you that the law is what you just said, and it is not in variance with the Constitution because it talks about 30 days before the election. Of course, the primary election is an election. If you widen the gamut of interpretation of that law, it could also mean the primary election. It never said before the general election. So to that extent, that law is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It is just a matter of interpretation. And that's why I say to you that until we get to a situation where maybe the ultimate court in the land makes a pronouncement, we cannot come to that conclusion.
Okay, I think these are matters that will be determined by the appellate courts.
That's right.
Professor Akintenewa, let me come to you quickly before I go to Professor Awurawa, who is also standing by.
I do not understand why Chike Ogiya will have to position himself in between when what Chidi Odika Kalu told us was so clear. Professor Odin Kalu made me happy as a scholar. A scholar does not deal with people, whether corporate or individual. A professor, called professor, deals with issues, and he dealt with the issues very objectively. You did point to the chronological approach he adopted. It is not even the chronological methodology he adopted that is the issue. What is more important, what is beautiful about his submission is that you file a case on the 10th. On the 14th, you are already arguing. On the 18th, judgment is already given. You like that. But the point he made is that on the basis of the judgment, the date given in the judgment is March 11. And that is the dynamic, the most critical element of his submission. You have already a judgment with a date March 11. Then you are arguing a case on the 14th.
That's right.
No. You see, that is academic scholarship. That is what a professor should draw the attention of the general public to guide the society. Any given stratum of society that can listen to this, how will you explain this type of problematic? The French will call it problematic. You have a judgment already dating March 11. Then you are going to argue March 14. No, please. You see, I thank Shidi. He encourages me. You see, many professors are inspiring in Nigeria. I think he's one of them.
And you are the second.
I'm very happy that I will continue to research and learn.
Ruben will join you soon.
Yes, no, he will be most welcome. You see,
I'm tired of talking on television. Right?
The beauty of the various submissions so far, the Falaners have argued. We read the submission of Kayode Ajulo and a host of others. Yeah. And they have come up with different arguments to say that, look, some people even say that the ruling amounts to erosion, you know, of the independence of the legislature. Some people have even said, and Chike rightly pointed that one out, when you have an act already, in the act, Muhammadu Buhari only suggested, advised, or requested that that particular section 84 paragraph 12 be removed or be amended or be modified. That has not been done, meaning now that that particular signing, assenting to, makes it an act, it's already a law.
That's right.
So it is already in force. Now for the High Court to now come to act in a position that is not befitting because it does not have the local standing. It is an appeal court that can overrule that particular law that is there. So we don't have to be a lawyer. We don't have to be a learned person like you, but we can be a learned student and then draw attention to it. So I think that as it is, we need to ask one question. When law is not in the public interest, although the law exists, but when it is not in the public interest, when we know quite well that having this particular section 84 paragraph 12 will be, all right, to the advantage, to the growth, to the development of the society, should we insist on a law that is not hurtful, or we should just seek to do what is right?
No,
I think
the true test of a law is in its implementation. And the law is a social modulator. The people themselves make the laws.
That's right.
And if they reject this, as has happened with the law on bigamy in Nigeria,
Where
the law becomes...
it's observed more in its breach.
the question you put to Professor Dick Kalu is, he wrote, he likened it to sex workers, political sex workers, and you really want to pin him down, but he naturally escaped your trap by telling you that, look, he's not just likening it to a judgment of Per Korea, but that actually what the court did, it was wrong.
It was manifestly wrong.
Well,
I agree. I agree.
So he was correct, and he convinced me beyond reasonable doubt.
I agree.
Okay, Professor David Awurawo, I would like to bring you in here. What's your take in this regard? Should, public servants, political appointees, should they resign before the election in order to create a level playing field? Because that's the main government, as lawyers would say, in this particular issue.
Yeah, Section 84, subsection 12 that is in contention is good.
A footnote after.
It's good for our electoral process. It provides avenue for a level playing field. It's good for our people. It's good for the system. And so what the judge has done is very disheartening. When I spoke last week on this, Section 84, Section 12 of the Electoral Act, I began by saying it's always well, believing that our people will be reasonable, rational, accept the reality, and move on. We didn't know that there was a whole lot that was, being concocted, and we saw how the thing manifestly was presented by the judge in the course of the week. There are many things wrong with the judgment. First, the status of the courts, to say a part of a law already, an act, a law already in existence should be struck out. And then the alacrity with which the Attorney General said, oh, it will be gazetted and it will be assumed that Section 84, Section 12 never existed as part. All of that. I mean, that, is undefined. The definition of public servants, which, has been used as a basis now, Section 66 of the Constitution, which says a month before the election, public servants should resign. These are political appointees. The reality is that the spirit of the law, which is trying to provide a level playing field for all contestants to ensure that those who emerge will be those that the people actually want to govern them, is embedded in that Section 66. So citing Section 66 as a basis for discountenancing Section 84 verse 12 is just not right. Well, the judge has ruled, and then the way forward is appeal. I wouldn't want a situation whereby we just discuss the matter here and everybody goes home and that judgment becomes, what is used as a basis for the next election. Well, I would imagine that from tomorrow, appeal will be presented to the appeal court. And of course, I also imagine that the matter will go all the way to the Supreme Court so that there will be pronouncement on this. And that will be the basis, to forge ahead with the election. But to summarize, my take on it is that Section 84, Section 12 of the Electoral Act is good. It's good for election. It's good for political system. And this attempt to do some moonlighting to remove it should be resisted by Nigerians. And not resisted by going to the streets, but resisted by going to the appeal courts. And of course, we know that it will likely go to the Supreme Court for a final pronouncement on the matter.
Okay, thank you, Professor Awurawo. But Professor Akintera, you wanted to say something on this, but you have to be very brief.
I will.
Because we need to evaluate the Anambra situation also.
Thank you. You see, it is important to understand the fundamental difference between a political appointee and a public or civil servant. I only want to use my personal experience. When I was appointed SA, they say SA, to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Oluyemi Adeniji, the problem was raised whether I should be called special advisor or special assistant. Now, because I left the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs to go there, the letter given to me reads special advisor. Because of that, they gave me level 16, step 4. For the 7-8 years there, I was on the same grade because they considered me special advisor. The concept of special advisor refers only to political appointees. But because I was coming from within means from a government agency, they say, look, they are dictating that I'm a special assistant, trying to say that, look, I'm supposed to assist the minister to attain whatever objectives he has. So whether I agree with him or not, my own is to assist him in whatever he wants to get. The political appointee can be fired, he can go, he's an outsider. He's not coming from within. So in this case, the court simply says that, look, the court was wrong in equating a political appointee with, that is, special advisors with special assistants.
We don't need to go too far. Who is a public servant is defined under Section 318 of the 1999
yes,
Constitution.
Yes, employees of government.
Section 318 of the 1999 Constitution. And that was what the court was talking
Political
about.
Political appointees are not necessarily employed by government.
Yeah, that's why I'm quoting
For
Section
me,
318.
the only thing I want to say is this. Why I didn't even bother, of course, I agree totally with everything Chidi said, but why I said my case was different is that I don't even want to go into that voyage of discovery, because I am saying that the elections in May, if we follow the golden rule and we want to interpret what the court has said, is talking about the elections in May, which is at the primary elections, and that holds water, and there is no need to even go further. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So it's not even inconsistent.
The Electoral Act is still there.
Okay.
Yes, it's not inconsistent.
We have to move on now.
With the Constitution.
We have to move on now.
Yeah.
We'll take a break, and then when we come back, we'll discuss the submissions of Dr. Chima Naji with regard to the situation in Anambra State. Stay with us. We'll be right back. It's still This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. With me in the studio, I still have Professor Bola Akinterewa, Director General, Polytech Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, Chike Ogia, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Mark Foley Hospitality Limited, and Professor David Awura, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos, Nigeria. Well, gentlemen, we spent some time discussing the Electoral Act as amended and as adjudicated upon by the Federal High Court in Umuahia. But the other major issue that we talked about with this time, Dr. Chima Naji, was the inauguration of Professor Charles Chukwumash Soludo, succeeding Willie Obiano as governor of Anambra State. And we looked at his agenda, and Dr. Chima Naji guided us through that. And also that phenomenal, historic, unforgettable event of the cat fight between the wife of the former warlord, Dim Odumegu Ojukwu, Bianca Ojukwu, and Osodiem, the wife of Willie Obiano, Ebelechukwu Obiano. And many people have commented on this, that that particular incident took the shine off the major submissions, the agenda of Professor Charles Soludo. Although Dr. Naji was of the view that he didn't think that it affected his agenda, and that Soludo is on to a good start in Anambra. Professor Awurawo, let me start with you.
Gentlemen on the back.
Professor Awurawo, Yes, I wanted you to comment on...
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, please go ahead.
On the Soludo solution.
Yes, the Soludo solution.
Yeah, we are very happy. Yes, we are very happy with what is happening in Anambra State.
You're happy with the cat fight?
We have someone... Not at all, not at all. I mean, the cat fight is a sideshow that we can just, you know, talk about, laugh about, and move on.
I see.
The main issue is Soludo and his agenda for Anambra. We are very happy that Anambra has a governor now who is cerebral, who understands the terrain, who has a clear agenda as to what to do to bring Anambra, you know, improve quality of life of Anambrians, you know, and bring Anambra to where it should be in line with global development, you know, the global level in economic development. His agenda is clear. He talks about security. He talks about bringing Anambra in tune with the fourth industrial revolution, talking about the Internet of Things, talking about robotics, you know, talking about high tech, so to speak. He talks about how to, you know, unify Anambrians for a common purpose to be able to develop, you know, Anambra. Clear, agenda, clear policy, and I'm happy we have someone like that who has, who is also committed and energetic, you know, to bring genuine development to Anambra. But when we speak about what Soludo wants to do and the enthusiasm with which he has brought into, you know, governance in the past just few days that he took over, we should also comment on the challenges before him and maybe suggest to him ways and means by which, you know, he will be able to deliver. Because it's one thing to make promises, another thing to be able to deliver on them. For security, I want to think that the greatest challenge that Soludo will have is that of maintaining law and order, providing security in Anambra. I say this because he doesn't have control, total control over the structures and infrastructure of security management in Anambra. And we are familiar with the recent history of Anambra, and of course, the wider Southeast, in terms of the opposition to government, violence, especially against the police and other law enforcement agencies. How does Soludo hope to be able to control the instrument of security management in Anambra? That is the big challenge. He will need to work closely with the police. He will need to work closely with other agencies that he does not have, you know, total control over. He needs to, you know, fashion out ways to be able to, you know, establish a synergy that will enable him to maintain law and order and provide security in Anambra. He talks about bringing Anambra to, you know, the level of the fourth industrial revolution and all that. That has to start from the primary school, you know, and that needs huge investment in education, beginning from the primary school, such that, you know, those who go to school in Anambra would, you know, learn, would be exposed to all of these things right from scratch. And as they grow and develop, they will have the skill to be able to, you know, cope with, you know, the current level of technology, Internet of Things, and things like that. And of course, industrializing Anambra too is something that will be also very challenging because resources are lean. It talks about post-oil, post-crude oil economy. It's not something that happens overnight, but you can lay the foundation with sincerity of purpose. So all in all, well, one can say that Anambra will likely witness, a lift with Soludo's coming. But those are the challenges that, Soludo faces in attempting to, achieve all of it. One last thing I want to say is that Soludo, well, we hope that he has learned enough emotional intelligence, to be able to carry everybody along. He talks about people applying to be commissioners. I'm not sure he needs to go all of that. All those who assisted him to, win the election, I think the pool is large enough for him to be able to select those who are competent, people he will be able to supervise, to be able to deliver on his agenda. He doesn't need to go to the extreme, that would, cause trouble for his ability to administer well in Anambra. There are jobs you can tell people to apply for. There are also jobs that you will need to satisfy those who assisted him to come to power, but ensure that they fit into his agenda and deliver on the promises he has made to the Anambra people.
Okay, thank you, Professor Awolawo. Chikoga, over to you.
Well, Charles Soludo, many people don't even know. I'm sure it's going to be a shock, even to maybe both of you here, that I was actually his special assistant at a point in time. And that was why when Chima Nnaji said he doesn't have a godfather, I smiled. He actually does. We share the same godfather. It's just a pity he's gone now. The erudite Professor Emmanuel Edozien, I'm sure he'll be very proud to say that is his godfather, because that is also my godfather as well. But
you seem to have many godfathers.
Just two.
I can count up to 3.
No, 2.
No, I can count up to 3. I don't want to expose you on television.
And Asiodu, that's it. Asiodu is the first. Well, the truth is this. Because of that, I remember when we were writing the NEET document, I was in the East, in actually Akwa Ibom, Rivers, and Bayelsa State with Charles Chukwuma Soludo, and we're driving from one government house to the other, launching, needs. And I remember one evening, I was sitting behind him in the Jeep, and he said to me, I'll never forget that this is a lot of work we are doing, but I don't know why, nobody has thought about it, that you need 2 hands to clap. And that even if the federal government is doing such a beautiful poverty reduction strategy paper, what about the states?
2 hands clapping.
Yes.
That's from Emiko Abiola.
That's right. And that was how
Emiko Abiola said, you cannot clap with 2 hands.
And that was how he also started developing seeds.
Yeah.
So why the background of this is that our people didn't realize at this time he was the chief economic advisor to the president and was in charge of the national planning. This was ever before he went into the central bank. And just like Professor Awolawo was saying there, I can tell you he developed all the emotional intelligence because he dealt with civil servants, hands-on at that time. Babangida, is it Babangida Aliu, the governor of Niger State, was the permanent secretary in that ministry at that time. And he understood how the civil service worked. I remember because Charles Soludo is a frighteningly intelligent human being. He came strictly from
say somebody can be frighteningly intelligent.
he came from the private sector where he had done all this consultation work with different government agencies across the world and all of that, World Bank, the Bretton Woods institutions and all of that. And he just thought that everything must be clockwork until he came and realized the way the civil service works. So all in all, I knew and I think he'll be okay. It was clear about from what we saw, his agenda is clear. How he intends to develop agenda is to develop Anambra is clear. He started off with this let's all patronize Anambra. We can see his car that he has parked there. Innocent, those are the kind of things that are, very, very the kind of things he would do. So I have no problem with that. And I think he will do well. In fact, my prayer is that one day I will see the like of Soludo being sworn in as the president of Nigeria. That is the prayer I beg God that I should be alive to see that day. Then coming to the little distraction, like you said, apparently I was reading somewhere and found out that was not the first time a first lady was getting slapped in Nigeria. That's not the first time. Apparently, with the old Oyo State, there was a lady, she's about 80 now. You must have heard about
Ajayi.
Mrs. Ajayi. Apparently, she gave the military administrator's wife at that time, gave her a dirty slap, because she slapped her first. And I think when they told her husband, who was a judge, and he said, I would have driven her out of my house if she didn't return the slap. So maybe Dim Ojukwu would have said the same thing if he was alive. That how can you sit down there? Look at where Mrs. Ojukwu was put. Mrs. Ojukwu was put right next to the incoming governor to show you the reverence they held her husband. Obviously because she was standing on the pedestal of her husband. And I think she has conducted herself over the years, such a brilliant, beautiful woman. There's been no scandal with her and all of that. And then this other woman comes in 1 hour. A woman, I've been to so many swearing-ins, and when a government is going in and a government is going out, it is protocol that the outgoing governor should be seated with his wife. I did it in Delta. I've seen it twice. You know, how can she come in 1 hour?
She didn't sit with the husband.
No, because she came late. Her seat was right next to her husband. She came late, went somewhere else, which obviously shows that she had a problem with her husband. Like they said, she was reeking of alcohol. Then she made for Dimo Juku's wife, and she started putting out all that invectives and all that.
Don't die in their war.
This is what we said. This is what we read. I'm not dying in their war, but I'm being objective. And I thought it was disgraceful for her to have done what she did. For a first lady of a state who had been there for 8 years to behave in that manner is despicable, if you ask me. I'm sorry about that. But finally, in my submission, you know, so I can see the floor to Prof. I don't think it took any shine off that swearing-in ceremony. It was just an unnecessary distraction. She just disgraced herself and her family, if you ask me. And like they said, you heard what the Obi of Oka has said. So that tells you it's not about dying in anybody's war. It's about stating the facts as it is.
Okay, Prof. One Anambra, one people, one agenda. That's Charles Soludo's message. Can we come back to that before you give your comment on the war of the wives?
I want to begin with Apuga. You raised the issue. And I think that I will subscribe to your school of thought. We need, or let me put it this way, we need to develop our own dialects, our own language. So if it is going to be Apuga, they want to call it, let's get used to it. That will be a very good way of also learning the culture of others. Why? Because Anambra, that's not how it is pronounced in the village. It's Anambra. So why are you anglicizing this and imposing that culture on us when our own local one there? Jesus Christ was speaking in parables in the Bible. Dr. Nagy spoke in Proverbs. He spoke many things proverbially, which had, you know, a greater impact than the extensive explanations. Now, I think that Ebeleshuku Obiano and probably the husband had a specific agenda to disrupt the event. That is my hypothesis, and I give you some reasons. Now, when Ebeleshuku Obiano arrived, she saw the husband where he was sitting. Why did she stay elsewhere? Didn't they leave the same home? If they were fighting, they should have ended their quarrel before getting there. Why I'm raising this is that Obiano, the exiting governor,
outgone.
No, by the time he was there, he was still exiting. Okay, you have to wait until the judge swears in. Now the issue is that when the saga was on, we were told that he kept quiet. He didn't say anything. He became an observer. Now, the time of the assault took place simultaneously when, for instance, the chief judge was now trying to make Soludo to read. I saw it. It was simultaneous. Meaning now that the intention, the ulterior motive, couldn't have been that, okay, at the time they will want to swear in Soludo, they will disrupt it. So attention will be drawn. Now, when...
Did the judge, if I go by your logic, the chief judge, did he offend the gods too?
No, this time he didn't offend anyone. He didn't know. He wouldn't have known what is happening and what is in the head of Beleshuku Obiano. But the issue was that it was the time. Why didn't he go there to assault Bianca when the swearing in of the deputy was on? The swearing in started with the deputy. But he didn't do that. It is only when they called Soludo. And you know they were carrying a chair. Now to give to him to sit to write. That was the moment he decided to go and attack. So that they really wanted to disrupt something. So please, you see, when you look at it, the husband kept quiet. They waited until Soludo will be sworn in. And by that time, he started by, first of all, insulting, violent something all along. So please, now when you look at the reaction of Bianca, she was tolerant to the extent that when the issue of abuse of tradition would take place, to say, you are touching my body, you want to remove the symbol of tradition. He decided now on the basis of legitimate self-defense to slap her. She didn't deny, said, dirty slap. Dirty slap. Now, she didn't slap her because she was revenging. No, she slapped her to say, you cannot abuse our tradition. You cannot defame us something.
Well,
if you are not a genuine Igbo something, we are proponents of that.
Well, you know what you are doing?
Yes.
You are defending assault.
I'm not.
You are defending Afri.
No.
Which Afri, right?
Yeah. No.
Which is also an offense
no.
under Nigerian law.
No. No, you see, let me tell you, this is why I say I like Professor Dinkalu. We deal with issues as they are. When you do a polemological analysis of the crisis, you must ask question, why did he choose to act at this particular time? Now, why do you wait until the time of swearing in to come and show your grievance? Why should it be at the time of transfer of power? Is it that you do not want to leave the place? Normally, if you look at sociology of women's problems, the sociology reports have shown that it is only when women are quarreling.
That's sexist. Prof, that's sexist. We don't allow sexism on this program.
I didn't write it.
No, you are saying sociology of women's problems.
Yes, that's the
men's
title.
Problems.
No, men's problems are there. You see, when women decide to fight dirty, the major dynamic that has been identified in sociology, all right, of women is that, one, if they have problem, you suspect the other woman playing around with your husband. That is always the reason.
Prof, I don't
but
agree
it's not
with
like
you.
that.
I don't agree with you. There's significant literature on womanism and this gender politics you are trying to play.
No,
don't let us go there.
Different. Okay, we don't have to go. I'm only trying
don't
to
let
say,
us go there.
I'm saying that I'm not defending what we call assault.
But don't mischaracterize women.
No.
We are an international channel.
Yes, okay. Look, I think you are having a wrong interpretation of the point.
No, you are saying sociology of women's problems.
Yes.
How about the sociology of men's problems?
We have sociology of men's problems.
You give me enough problems.
Children's problems, women's problems, men's problems, they are bound.
Okay, let's move on.
In a nutshell, please, no one should be allowed to bastardize our tradition, whether it's Igbo tradition, Yoruba tradition, Hausa tradition. All right, we must not allow anyone under whatever pretext. You don't have to believe in it, but let the tradition. The British people, they have their queen there. It's still the king, but they will be telling us that our own Oba tradition, you have to do away with that. No, please.
Let's move on.
All right,
on that note, let's move on. A Federal Capital Territory High Court this past week vacated another, stopping the National Convention of the All Progressives Congress from taking place. Justice Bello Kawu, who had earlier restrained the party from holding the convention, says his verdict was predicated on the position that a member of a political party cannot take the party in question to court. The APC convention is scheduled for March the 26th. Now, This is a big issue with the APC. We all know that the APC has been having issues. With the chairman of the caretaker committee traveling abroad, Governor Sani Bello of Niger State taking over, the governor of Yobe State, Mai Malabuni, saying, well, he's not been removed. Some other people say he's been removed. The conflict between 19 governors and those who were described by Governor Akeredolu of Ondo State as Yahoo governors. And then the president stepping in and saying, look, the convention must hold on March 26. What are the big takeaways? One, that clearly that the All Progressives Congress is divided. Two, that there are forces fighting for the soul of the party. Three, that the president of Nigeria, who is the national leader of the party, is trying to move in to sanitize the place. Four, that this battle is all about 2023 among different factions within the party, because they will not agree, the members will not agree. They will say that these are disagreements, but it's now clear to us that there are factions within the party. But what should concern us is the ruling party of Nigeria, the APC, going through this turmoil, this chaos, this confusion, this range of uncertainty. What does all of that, what does it say about Nigerian democracy and the future, and a signal for the health of the political party system and process as the country moves towards 2023? Chike, you have been in politics. Let me start with you.
Well, again, very consistent with what I've always felt. I pray that, maybe the clout of the president might be able to forestall that. Otherwise, with the background of what is going on, I see the Zamfara situation coming up at the end of the day, whatever they do. Because the APC has been made in irregularities all this time. Everything they've been doing is not known to convention or law or, party politics. I mean, a party that for 2 years now does not have a national working committee or national executive committee to take care of his affairs. What are we talking about? I mean, I think there is, if we look well it's just that we don't do, we only depend on people like Femi Falana to do things like that. There are certain things we should look at. I am sure if we look well into the Constitution, there will be somewhere where we will find out a sitting governor who has the responsibility of administering a state, especially those states now that we have all this banditry and the kind of insecurity we have in the north, is being distracted by calling him the chairman of some, whatever committee you call it, to be supervising a political party. I mean, these are very, very strange concepts that the APC has brought. You see, but it was all in tune with the mob of get Jonathan out. Anything else but Jonathan. Clueless, useless, blah, blah. The mob was at it. And I must say this and I keep saying it, a vast majority of the PDP people that are even shouting today, that have endured one injustice or the other, they were part of it. We saw when all those governors moved over. In 2015, we saw all of them. They brought Buhari in. So what are we saying? I think the whole place, needs to be sanitized. And I don't know who is going to do it. I pray Buhari doesn't live with the APC. I just pray so for their own good, because that seems to be the only glue, because he has federal power, at his disposal now. And of course, with all the trappings of that, they have all these governors and all. But I can assure you, if a free and fair elections were to be conducted in Nigeria today, based on what we are seeing, no electricity, we can't even buy diesel, big businesses are closing down. I'm telling you, big businesses cannot be sustained anymore because you cannot pass on the cost to your customers. If based on what we are buying diesel in my organization, we decide to pass the cost there, then we will not be able to even get one customer into that place. That is the truth.
Our president has apologized now. That apology,
no, what does an apology have to do with anything?
No, Chike, don't worry yourself. Nigerians are very resilient. They are the most optimistic.
Yes, that's what they said. They said when you put a Nigerian to the wall, everybody else will push back, but Nigerian will turn around and break the wall. So he can fall inside some more. But I mean, we need help.
Before Professor Awura was
we need help.
Internet connection times out. Professor Awura, let me come to you, and then we come back to the studio here.
Well, the judgment in the course of the week, that gives the APC the nod to go ahead with their convention is a good one. The APC needs to have executive committee, national working committee to function properly so that all these complications of interpretation as to whether a governor, an executive, will be taken. But what the governor has done in the past and all that, maybe someday the court will interpret to see whether those things are valid or not. But moving forward, the judgment of the court is in order. And it will enable APC to forge ahead to try to resolve the many contradictions it has. And, they're going to with not much encumbrances, so to speak. As to you are regarding what the APC is facing, that one, there are factions, and two, there are disagreements, three, there are individuals who are fighting for the soul of the party. It's all true and real. Many years ago, Professor Claude Aki, after analyzing the Nigeria political view, concluded by saying that in Nigeria, the struggle for power is everything and is pursued by every means. What the professor wrote 40 years ago or thereabouts, true, that those who get to power when they get huge, that they put in everything, including not my lost, to get there. That in microcosm, what the experience of the APC has been in the past couple of... They have tried to think, say, when they came back and say, all they came are valid. And Bello also said that, yes, I was only acting. But when he came in initially, when he first came in, he said he didn't know anybody called Buni on that day. So even though there are attempts to try to pretend as if the cracks are not cracks, it is obvious to everybody that the cracks are there and the cracks are deep. But, well, we can only wish them well, only state that they should try and put their house in order. We also not want a situation where we have a one-party state, because if APC disappears, from the trend of elections in the past, PDP, all the other parties, are just neither here nor there. They are in the periphery, in the distant periphery. Look at the Abuja elections. So if APC goes down with President Buhari, what we'll have will be only PDP. We also don't want a one-party, structure. So we want APC to at least be able to remain, and let's see how far it goes. But as for the judgment, I congratulate the APC for that judgment. I wish them to be able to go with their convention, have the executive, have their national working committee, and be in some position of strength to go into the election of 2023. I mean, that is my position on that. But of course, there are cracks. They all really need to do a whole lot of, diplomatic engagement, grant concessions, give away, give up personal ambitions and entrenched desires for the party to be able to survive. But let's wait and see how far they go.
Okay.
That's my take.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Awura, and thank you for referring to Professor Claude Aki. The same argument was propounded, pushed by Richard Joseph, Larry Diamond, Peter Eke, and also by Billy Dudley, famous for the game theory in Nigerian politics. Very quickly, Professor Akintenwa, before I come to you, let's take the last topic about Russia, and then you can comment on both. The Russian military on Sunday, today, said it had carried out a new series of strikes on Ukrainian military facilities with long-range hypersonic and cruise missiles. Spokesman Major General Igor Konashenkov said that a Kinzhal hypersonic missile hit a Ukrainian fuel depot in Konstantinivka, near the Black Sea port of Mykolaiv. It was the second day in a row that Russia used the Kinzhal, capable of striking targets 2,000 kilometers away, at a speed 10 times the speed of sound. The previous day, the military said the Kinzhal was used for the first time in combat to destroy an ammunition depot in Diliatin in western Ukraine. Konashenkov also noted that Kalibr cruise missiles had been launched by Russian warships from the Caspian Sea. Well, Professor Akintenwa, these two issues quickly as we try to bring the program to a close.
First issue, we used to have this Professor Jerry Garner, who said, when you are a director...
He's still alive, not that we used to have him. We still have him.
I didn't say use.
You said we used to have this professor.
Okay, yes, all right.
Okay.
He said, when you are a director, you direct well.